This is a picture of me, 4-year-old Jerry, sitting in Chef Mickey's with Minnie Mouse on 9/11, 2001. Roughly an hour before the incident took place, my family, including my cousins, were at this restaurant about to get our day started, going to Magic Kingdom. And my perspective on 9/11 overall is it's a very interesting one, and it's one that I feel like no one talks about this dynamic of, which understandably there's way more important things to talk about than Disney World on 9/11, but it is rather fascinating to think how the park itself operated and what was going on there that day, because I was there. And while I don't remember exactly what was happening because I was way too young to interpret things, I have a lot of firsthand encounters. I have a lot of firsthand stories of the events that unfolded that day, and I've always wanted to give it the proper justice that it deserves, because they're not gonna. So, I figured there's no better time than the present to talk about this. So as I mentioned, we started out our day at Chef Mickey's, which is a restaurant in the Contemporary Resort right near the Magic Kingdom. So we went there, we ate, and then we took the monorail from inside the Contemporary. We took that on over to the Magic Kingdom. I mean, it's right next door. We might have walked, to be honest. We did one or the other. I don't know. That detail, couldn't tell you. Don't know what happened. Regardless, we get inside of Magic Kingdom, time's around 9 something. And as soon as we get in, we're walking down Main Street, just, doing our thing, excited for the day. And shortly thereafter, the lines are blurred. I don't know exactly when this was, but shortly thereafter, my dad started noticing people around him were getting calls on their cell phones, crying, and then leaving. And he didn't know what was going on, but he said the volume of people that he saw doing that was growing. Every minute he'd see more and more people calling or getting a call from someone, looking panicked or crying, and leaving the parks. So my dad asked one of the people who work at Disney, I forget what they call them, like attendees, whatever, I don't know. He asked one of them what was happening, and they had then advised him, "Sir, you should call someone who's back home." So my dad called his parents, who informed him that we were under attack. And because of that, there is images that can be seen online of what happened immediately thereafter in Disney. It was a really interesting thing. People were flooding to the exits. No one knew what to do because, we had just been attacked. The country was under attack. No one knew what was happening next. All we knew was that two commercial airliner planes had crashed into the Twin Towers. That's all we knew. We didn't know what was next. We didn't even know if there was more attacks coming. So everyone who was in the park's natural instinct was, we need to get the fuck out of this park, because if those are big targets, Walt Disney World is just as big of a target. We need to leave. So there's an iconic picture, I think it was on the Time magazine, of people flooding the exit of Main Street, trying to leave Main Street as soon as possible. Of course, I don't remember any of this. All I remember is later that day when we got back to our hotel, which was at the Wilderness Lodge in Disney's grounds. So it was one of the Disney resorts. We got back there, and I remember sitting on the bed while my parents and my aunt and uncle were in the bathroom, and they were talking about what had happened. And I'm sitting there, I see the TV on, and I see what was the incident that had occurred, and I was so confused. That's the only memory I have, or at least it's the memory that I tell myself. God only knows what I exactly remember, how those moments exactly played out in real life. I was way too young to know, but that is the memory that I keep remembering, if that makes any sense. And I just remember being very confused about the whole ordeal. I didn't understand why there was planes hitting buildings in the sky. I remember being concerned and confused that my parents were in the bathroom. They looked really concerned and they were talking about what to do. I just didn't understand it. And having had that experience being my first time in Disney, let alone my first time in the parks, I was I had no idea what was going on. I had this mixed emotion of being very excited and very happy, then all of a sudden being scared and confused and not knowing. And it's just so weird to think that that was my first ever memory of Disney. And it's bizarre to think that so many people were there that day having a similar sort of ambiguous, scary feeling. And that's not it. We were in Disney. We're from New Jersey, so we had to figure out a way home. How were we going to get home when America had just been under attack for what is one of the craziest events to ever occur? What were we going to do? Well, we flew to Disney, so we're not going to fly back. Absolutely not. That's not happening. So my parents, assumingly in that bathroom, were trying to figure out exactly what to do. Either way, that was the first day of our trip, so we still had a whole rest of the trip to go. And we did go out. We ended up going back to the parks eventually and things like that. Not that day, though, because that day they advised everyone to go back to the resorts, which we did. And the characters, like all the Disney characters, Chip and Dale, Mickey Mouse, Minnie, Goofy, all of them, they all flooded the lobbies of every hotel. So in the Wilderness Lodge, for instance, I was there, my sister, my cousins, we were all there just getting autographs from characters like Chip and Dale. And as a matter of fact, there's a pretty funny picture of me crying on Chip and Dale's lap while my mom's trying to grab me from that day. I didn't even realize in that moment what was happening. And my parents, my mom, she looks so happy and just regular in that picture, but behind her is all of this chaos that's going on in the world. That's something that's always truly just resonated with me in such a weird way. And I think that's always led to my fascination and love for Disney, was that weird experience, just being there on that day and not quite understanding all of it, but still having this love and excitement for this place. It just drew me in further. I don't know. It's like the worst first impression of Disney World, but there's bigger problems than a first impression of Disney World on September 11th, 2001, So regardless, after that day, I know eventually we ended up going back to the parks. I have pictures of me at what was MGM Studios at the time. Now it's Hollywood Studios. I have pictures of me there. I dropped a lollipop and screamed and cried about it and things like that. But it still didn't answer the question. How the fuck were we going to get back home to New Jersey? No one wanted to take a plane. I mean, people were. The airlines, I believe, a couple days, I don't remember exactly the time frame, but I do believe a couple days after the incident, the airlines were back in the sky. So it wasn't impossible for us to get back home, but it wasn't a possibility for us. We were never going to let that happen. So what ended up happening is my parents, as well as my cousins, decided, or my aunt and uncle, not my cousins, they decided the best course of action would be to rent an Enterprise car, which was a minivan, and drive back home, which from Orlando, Florida to Philadelphia, which is where we'd have to drop off the car, that's a good 18-hour drive. It's not close, not right around the corner. It's not easy to do, but I remember that was the odds they were dealt. So there was eight of us, my parents, my aunt, uncle, my two cousins, and my sister. That's eight of us, all crammed in one minivan. It was so packed for us with our luggage and everything that my parents, my mom and my aunt specifically, they had to sit on the floor of the minivan for the entire 18-hour trip it took to get back home. That's insane. I don't know how they did it. Power to them. It blows my mind that was a thing, but it was the reality. It was exactly what happened. And it's just insane. So anyway, they eventually, I guess, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I'm assuming that they had dropped off the Enterprise car in Philly or somewhere. But I remember my dad telling me recently that when they had gotten to Philly, there were so many rental cars from all over. They had license plates from all over the country at that Enterprise location in Philly. So clearly everyone had a similar idea. They were all transporting in different ways back home with, these Enterprise cars. I didn't know until much later in life that a couple of years went by And there was, I believe, a summons or an FBI court case out for my parents, something like that, because apparently whoever it was trying to say that they stole that Enterprise car. The point I'm making is Enterprise was so, which they never did, but the point I'm making is Enterprise was so backed up that day because of all the dropped off cars they received that they didn't account for the vehicle. That is mind-boggling to me. That's just crazy to think about how many people were in a similar predicament. And it's crazy to think that when an event like this happens, it doesn't just affect New York City. And obviously that's where the biggest by far impact was. But it affects everywhere. That terrorism spreads everywhere, and that's the goal. That's the goal of terrorism. It's to spread fear across a nation. And, 9/11, they were successful at doing that. Because look at that. I don't know. The whole situation is just absolutely crazy to me. The entire event that unfolded, which it's sad to say, but in the years lately, 9/11 has been such a interesting topic for me, especially, and I think that has to do with when I was, in Disney experiencing it. I think that was like the biggest reason for that. But 9/11 has really had such an interesting mental impact on my life since then. And I don't know, I'm always still fascinated by it in every which way, like from everything. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist about what had occurred, but I'm even fascinated to hear what people have to say on that side of the spectrum. Not that I agree with it, because I actually don't, but the discourse that goes on about 9/11 overall, outside of some of the really messed up things that, like, I don't even know where these stupid theories come from and stuff like that, but just every spectrum of the conversation is just absolutely fascinating to me. Hearing different perspectives from people that were in the buildings, hearing people's stories like, I don't know, mine, who was in Disney World, hearing from people, from firefighters, all sorts of different perspectives. I think it paints light to a really interesting moment in history. And it's always been just so crazy to me to think that there's many, 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 many people out there who were born after 9/11. Like, I don't know why, but it's just such a crazy thought to me. And it's not like I remember much of the incident, but I just can't imagine what that's like. I'd imagine a lot of you watching this video weren't born until after 9/11. It's just crazy to me. That's so foreign and nuts. I don't know why, but it's the reality of it. Regardless, I just wanted to talk about this because this is something I think about all the time, because the topic of 9/11 at large really just, it's never left my mind, ever. And I don't think it should. I don't think it should leave anyone's mind because of the profound impact it had on our society, and we're still feeling the ramifications of it. But I don't know. I think it's good to have discourse like this and share stories and things like that. So wanted to share mine. Thought it was interesting. I feel like no one out there discusses, things like that from places that you would never think people would be at on that day. But there were thousands and thousands of people there, and that's nuts. Hopefully this resonated with you. I'd love to hear some of your stories down below. And with that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.